Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba from Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the resident legal diva. And it is time for another Mondays with Melba. This one we're going to keep pretty quick and dirty. Wanting to give y'all some updates on the P. Diddy case. So, as many of you may know, a couple months ago, Cassie, who is a singer and had dated P. Diddy for almost a decade, filed a lawsuit under the Adult Survivors Act. This is a law that was very limited in nature. It was passed in New York as well as in California, and it basically extends the statute of limitations where you're able to now file a legal action against somebody who sexually abused you in the past. This is kind of like in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein and the Jeffrey Epstein cases, where folks were abused back in the day when they were younger, but did not report at the time or did not feel that they had the ability or would be taken seriously because of, let's say you are someone getting started in your career, you were young. There's the possibility law enforcement may not have taken your claim seriously. Many reasons why folks may not have reported at the time, but it gives them the ability to go back now, years later, and file a lawsuit around the activities or the harm that they suffered. So, under this act, Cassie filed a lawsuit. And it was very, very disturbing because, I'll be honest, I was a Diddy fan. And when I read, I got through like the first 2 pages of what Cassie filed. Oh my God. I mean, the things that she endured were completely horrible. So that was the beginning, because once one person comes forward, then more people tend to come forward. So 3 other women indicated that they were abused by P. Diddy after Cassie filed her lawsuit. Then, in the latest bombshell, Little Rod, who was a producer that was within the Diddy circuit orbit, also filed a lawsuit claiming that he was forced to watch and basically be a part of many horrible activities, that he just started naming names, which got a little crazy because, first of all, he pulls J-Lo back into this, right? So in his lawsuit, he says that, number one, back in 1999, there was a shooting when J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, was dating P. Diddy. And she was at a club with him as well as a rapper by the name of Shine. Well, a shooting ended up happening at this nightclub. All 3 of them get arrested. J-Lo's charges are dropped pretty much immediately. Diddy and Shine end up going to trial. Diddy ends up getting found not guilty. Shine ends up getting convicted, ends up doing time. Now, what Lil Rod says in his lawsuit is that J-Lo brought the gun with her to the club at the request of Diddy, and that Diddy confessed to Little Rod that he was the one who did the shooting, not Shine. So now this is a whole mess because, of course, JLo's trying to move on with her life and not be in anybody's mouth, right? And now she's, basically her past is coming back to haunt her, in that she was the one who brought the gun to the situation. So the charges were dropped against her. That's not coming back. Those charges aren't going to come back. But it was very interesting because Cassie also said something similar, that Diddy made her go to clubs with him carrying a firearm, which, again, to me, that's all about like loyalty, control, all that kind of stuff. So hearing that from Little Rod definitely substantiates what Cassie was saying in terms of some of the behaviors that were going on. So, that was all very disturbing. Then Lil Rod also starts naming other names, including Young Miami and Daphne Joy. Now, Young Miami is part of the City Girls, which is another rap group, and Daphne Joy was, influencer, dancer, etc. Well, the 2 of them were named as sex workers that were coming to Diddy's parties, for the purposes of that, right? So, as a result of that being said, now 50 Cent got in the mix. Why? Because 50 Cent and Daphne Joy have a child together. So now 50 Cent is filing paperwork to get full custody of their child together, saying that because she's a sex worker, or quote unquote, allegedly, supposedly, that made her an unfit mother, right? So that's a whole other ball of wax, and that's going to be determined in a court of law. A judge is going to have to make a decision based on, again, is the child in a stable home environment? Are they taken care of? Are they eating properly? Are they going to school? All these things are going to come into the mix and come into play. But what was really ugly about it was how 50 Cent started going on social media and basically calling out Daphne Joy and being like, you little sex worker. And just the way that he was writing that was real creepy and started to make me think that this guy as well is abusive and a whole hot mess, right? Because again, these are things that need to be played out in a court of law. You don't need to go firing shots at somebody on social media, right? Especially since her name is being connected to a lot of trauma, right? Because there were sex workers who went there consensually, go to Diddy's parties for the purposes of making money or whatever. But again, the allegations that were in Little Rod's lawsuit is that the sex workers would come to the party, thinking that they were going to do XYZ. But once they got there, they were drugged. There was allegations of someone getting dangled off a balcony. I mean, they're like all kinds of insanity that nobody in their right mind is going to consent to, right? They got there and they just got abused. So if this may have happened to Daphne Joy, are we going to sit there and make jokes about it? There's a lot of toxicity happening there with 50 Cent and Daphne Joy. But it's just really sad to just see how the horrible things that Diddy did or allegedly did, right? But I believe the survivor. So period, end of, right? There are too many consistencies between all of their stories that just lead me to believe that, he was just a really wealthy, empowered male who thought it appropriate to, exercise his power by harming the people around him, right? And taking advantage of the people around him and abusing the people around him. So that is sad in and of itself. But you start to see the ripple effects as all these different names and other people get dragged into the mix, right? So again, you have got Daphne Joy's situation with, her new custody battle, but also Little Rod named Prince Harry as someone who attended the parties. Disturbing, but at the same token, mere presence doesn't mean you knew what was happening behind closed doors, right? Because again, you think about these parties that Diddy was having, they were happening at mansions, right? This is not a small apartment where everybody can hear everything. This is the type of situation where things may be happening on a different floor, on a different wing, you're by the pool, but something else is happening in the master bedroom. There's no necessarily way of knowing. So I hesitate to say, oh my gosh, Prince Harry did XYZ because, yeah, lots of people were at those parties, but not everybody partook in what was going on. And not everybody necessarily knew what was happening. Because again, keeping in mind, Diddy was a celebrity. He had a lot of famous and wealthy people in his orbit. So it's not illogical for those folks to be at the parties, but it's also not illogical that the folks didn't know that other things were going on. So what's going to happen next? The feds have raided Diddy's homes, but there's a lot of investigation left to be done. These parties didn't just occur at those homes. They occurred in other places. They may have occurred overseas, in terms of yacht parties, or you rented out a mansion on somebody's island and more horrible things happened, right? So I think that the feds went to Diddy's homes to look for surveillance, to look for video footage, anything that can substantiate and support the statements that were given by the various people that have been victimized. So that is the purpose, I think, of the search. Because again, the search warrant hasn't been made publicly available, so we can only guess at this point. I believe that charges are going to be filed soon, not like next week, but I think soon. The feds are just basically collecting all the evidence. They're talking to folks. They're figuring out who's going to flip, who is going to basically testify against him or against other people that may have been involved. I'm thinking about the young man that got arrested allegedly as the mule for Diddy, basically getting him cocaine and other drugs. I'm thinking he got arrested in Opelika, just in Florida, just after the raids were happening on P. Diddy's home in Miami. So I'm getting the feeling that this young man is going to be a very critical witness because he saw a lot of things. He delivered the drugs. He was present for these parties and possibly saw a lot of the abuse that occurred. And if he's facing drug trafficking charges, trust and believe he's going to run to the courthouse steps and figure out a way to be able to give testimony so that he can lessen whatever sentence he's facing, right? So that is part of all the things that are happening behind the scenes. So I say stay tuned. Within the next few weeks to a couple months, we're going to see charges being filed against Diddy for likely sex trafficking, probably narcotics possession or usage, maybe trafficking even, again, depending on what was found. And we'll see where it goes from there. But I just encourage everyone to really center the survivors, the folks who were victimized, the folks who thought they were going to a party, and next thing you know, they're being violated 10 different ways from sunrise. I'm not going to list out the things that were alleged because I know that that could be very traumatizing for folks. And, now that this is a, PG-13 show, but, at the end of the day, I want to be sensitive to what folks are dealing with. You can easily pull some of these allegations online if you want to read more about it. But again, just to really center the folks who are suffering right now and kind of withhold judgment, especially for folks who may have been engaged in sex work. Again, you may have consented to one thing, but you may not have consented to being abused in the way that you were. And people still should have autonomy over their body, no matter what they do for a living. So that's the bottom line. All right. So with that, take good care, y'all. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Mondays with Melba. Take care. Bye.